Hello, lore enthusiasts, and welcome back to Murder Drones. Today, I will be analyzing Episode 4, Cabin Fever. This episode has a whole lot of confusing scenes and some complicated plot elements, which is why I'm particularly excited to discuss this episode with you all. I even found a couple of significant little Easter eggs in this episode, so make sure you stick around to see those. If you're new around here, just so you know, this is part 4 of my series, Analyzing Murder Drones, and each episode is built around the audience only seeing the show up to this point. You only need to have watched up to episode 4 to understand this video. So now, let's get right into it. First things first, episode 4, Cabin Fever, is loosely inspired by, unsurprisingly, the horror film Cabin Fever, directed by Eli Roth. In this movie, 5 college graduates rent a cabin in the woods and begin to fall victim to a horrifying flesh-eating virus, which attracts the unwanted attention of the homicidal locals. Now, I know it's a bit of a reach to link up the two plots, but hey, the name links perfectly. Okay, to start the episode, we see a sign that says Camp 98.7, which was established in the year 3002, 69 years before the current time, and several decades before the core collapse. In episode 3, a newspaper could actually be seen in Uzi's room that said Camp 98.7, which would explain why she decides to go here to investigate. We see a school bus pull up, bringing Uzi's class to Camp 98.7 for a field trip. And for some reason, this guy rides the bus like a horse. His name is Ronathan, in case you were wondering. The teacher steps out first, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and straw hat, followed by Sam, who's high, and Emily, who's reading Final Girl, a horror novel about the last girl to be killed by some unknown entity. This is some major foreshadowing that Emily will be the last girl to be killed in this episode. Speaking of foreshadowing, if you look at Uzi's backpack, you notice there are some fake wings on them, obviously in reference to the real wings Uzi will grow later on. Going back to the characters leaving the bus, next is Darren and Rebecca, the couple we see get murdered first, then Brayden, who finally extinguishes the fire on his head from episode 2, then Thad and Lizzie, and then 2 NPCs, whose names are both literally unnamed student, and followed finally by Uzi. Uzi walks a bit away from the group and pulls out the 2 collars she has, the top one which Doll was wearing as a bracelet, and the bottom one which is hers. We got a close-up of it at the end of episode 3. This glimpse of the Camp 98.7 sign fades into a picture that Khan gave Uzi. This picture was taken just after the core collapse, and we can see the worker drones all disoriented and confused about what happened, and even one dead in the tree. We get our first look at Uzi's mom, Nori, excluding the hologram we saw in episode 2, who is reaching out to Khan for help. Khan says he didn't notice the collars, as we get to see those 2 same collars on Nori and Yeva, Doll's mom. Interestingly, Nori is the only one in this picture who looks happy. Everyone else is still confused about the core collapse, and in particular, Yeva looks extremely unsettled. The reasoning behind this look from Yeva and Nori's enthusiasm will be explained at the start of episode 7. We then get a look at the closet labeled Nori's Kooky Insane Stuff, which we briefly saw last episode when Khan put Uzi's drawings in there too. First, we see a name tag just like Yeva's but with Nori's name, and 002, which matches up with the 2 collars. This means that the 2 collars were originally Nori's and Yeva's, which we'll have more explanation about following episode 7. We see that Nori knew the murder drones were coming even before they landed. As Khan quoted, she said, "Build doors against the coming sky demons." This means that it was Nori's idea to build the doors, which Khan later became obsessed with. These drawings show that Nori predicted both the murder drones' arrival and the spire of corpses that they would build. We can also see in the next few frames this paper that is filled with math and some sort of wormhole. As we see this, Khan quoted Nori again, saying the singularity awakens. We won't get any more info on this singularity until episode 7. Now, something surprising about this scene is that I actually believe it took place before episode 1. The 002 collar was put in this closet on top of this picture, and this is when Khan gives it to Uzi for the first time. We've seen Uzi wearing this collar since her first appearance, which is why I think this scene took place before even the pilot episode. The only thing that confuses me is Khan saying, "Just be safe, okay?" During my first few watch-throughs of the series, I assumed this scene occurred between episodes 3 and 4, and he was saying "be safe" in reference to the Camp 98.7 trip. But if this took place before episode 1, what would he mean by this statement? If you have any thoughts on this, please leave a comment below. Uzi puts the 048 collar back in her pocket and the 002 collar back around her neck. Brayden asks the teacher why they're doing this field trip, and he says that it was Uzi's idea. We then get introduced to this gag that everyone in this class doesn't know who Uzi is, and fears her like she's the devil or something. Emily even crosses herself. Now, this very well may be just a gag, since Uzi's the goth girl at school, but it could also be plot relevant. I don't know about the forgetting about Uzi part, but the fact that everyone jumps back in fear from her and Emily crosses herself might be because of the solver. Uzi called it Robo-Satan, and maybe the worker drones can sense something is off about her. But then again, they never did that with Doll, so it probably is just a joke on the goth kid at school. Uzi apparently asked the teacher to go to Camp 98.7 to investigate on her own, but he was mad at the class's test scores and chose to bring everyone along with Uzi. N and V land in front of the class and are apparently their camp instructors. Everyone is obviously scared of them, and it was only until V shot unnamed student 1 that the class treated them as having some authority. N gets mad at V for killing some random student, and then announces that their job is to distract the rest of the students so that Uzi can go off and investigate the camp. They're all still reluctant to follow N and V, but after Thad and Lizzie, the popular kids, say it's okay, and Uzi scares them again, they all choose to go with them. Also, funny detail, Lizzie literally robbed unnamed student 1, keeping the cash and giving V his watch, meaning the two planned this murder and robbery. Also, when the class runs over to N and V because they see them as less of a threat than Uzi, you can tell she's upset about not fitting in. V sees this and chooses to rub it in a bit more by drawing even more attention to N by saying he's a pilot. Uzi then walks for a while before coming to this cabin. She uses the solver to break the lock to the door and to hold up her flashlight. We can clearly see that she's mastering the powers of the Absolute Solver, indicating quite a large time skip between episode 3 and 4. In the cabin, Uzi pulls this dog-themed calendar off the wall, and we can see the month of Sarah Morris. This was confirmed to be the 13th month of the Copper 9 calendar. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but the exoplanet this entire story takes place on is called Copper 9. Sorry for leaving that out. This user on Reddit did the math to say that the Copper 9 calendar has 14 months, which alternate between 31 and 32 days. Meaning 1 year on this planet is equal to 441 days. Just some quick Murder Drones trivia in case you were wondering. We also see on the calendar that mere weeks before the core collapse, all dogs on the planet were evacuated, and made immortal thanks to science. Apparently the humans had enough foresight to evacuate all dogs, but not enough to evacuate all humans. Seems like they should have gotten their priorities straight. After Uzi sighs a breath of relief that all the dogs were saved, she hears a noise nearby. When she shines her flashlight into the adjacent room, we see a crazy detail that I can't believe I missed countless times. For those of you who have seen the whole series, I'm sure you'll know who this seemingly lifeless figure is sitting on the side of this chair. For those who have only watched up until episode 4, I'll come back to this scene during my analysis of episode 7. The camera looks at Uzi, and when it moves back, we see the figure gone, and a human hand uncoils from the wall and moves back. Again, this detail is insane, but it will only be understood by those who have watched episode 7. Uzi is incredibly freaked out about this hand, So much so that she loses control of the solver on her flashlight and is forced to hold it by hand. She gets distracted, however, by a scream heard in the frozen lake outside the window. But it turns out to only be N and V having fun with the campers. And we even see Rebecca flirting with N. You can tell that this makes Uzi jealous, not only because Rebecca is hitting on her crush, N, but because N and V are fitting in so well with the group when she was never able to. Uzi will admit this in her conversation with V. The Absolute Solver then interrupts her thoughts by cracking the window and causing Uzi to overheat. Uzi opens her backpack for us to see a robot hand inside of it. We then get a flashback to Uzi in Doll's room by herself. After she got a taste of oil in episode 3, she returned to the bodies Doll had collected to take some for herself, which is how she has this severed hand. We can tell that Uzi is extremely reluctant to eat this arm, but the Absolute Solver is giving her no choice. This is exactly why Doll had saved the bodies of her victims to eat, because the Solver will cause you to overheat and die if you don't. It's the same case for the murder drones, who also have some of the Absolute Solver in them too, as N told us in episode 1. Before she could eat it, however, V shows up and Uzi kicks the backpack aside to stop V from seeing inside. V calls out Uzi for not investigating this cabin and instead watching her, N, and the other campers from the window. V then threatens Uzi by scratching her display and saying she'll kill her next, just before leaving to return to the group. After she's gone, Uzi uses the solver to repair the scratch on her display. One important thing to note is that the drones have to manually use the solver to repair themselves. It doesn't just happen automatically. This will come back up in the future. Uzi returns to her backpack to see that she crushed a cockroach with it when she kicked it aside, but she's able to revive it with the solver. As it crawls away, it squeezes between the floorboards, which gets Uzi curious to what's underneath. She opens up a hole and we see a dead worker drone with drawings of the Absolute Solver and tick marks, indicating how long they were down there before their death. An interesting thing to note here is the clothes this worker drone is wearing. It's a dress similar to the ones Yeva and Nori were wearing in the photographs, taken just after the core collapse. I'll explain the significance of this during episode 7. Uzi picks up 3 papers. The first 2 have drawings on them, and the last one is a J.C. Jensen form with the same symbol on it as the name tag and collars. These papers will be explained further in episodes 7, 8, and 5 respectively. Also, the writing on the final paper, as well as the claw that stuck to the backside, will be explained in episode 6. I know I'm not explaining much about these, but I want to keep this video friendly to those who haven't seen past episode 4, so just bear with me until I release more episodes. We then see a green cockroach crawl up on Uzi's arm. She immediately tries to kill it, which is interesting because she just revived one of its brothers earlier. Maybe the green color freaked her out. Also, the official name of this cockroach is the key bug, so I'll be referring to it as that from now on. We see that the key bug is able to display text to talk with the drones. It then scans Uzi, and once it sees the collar on her neck, identifies her as number 002, mistaking Uzi for her mom, Nori, because that collar was originally hers. The chat window that pops up has the same symbol we keep on seeing, and appears to be some sort of request chat. I'll come back to this and examine everything it says during episode 7. The thing that interests Uzi the most is the phrase call elevator. The key bug tells Uzi to place it on the proximity reader in Cabin Fever Labs. Uzi tries to get more info out of it, but speech to text fails drastically and the conversation ends there. As Uzi gets frustrated with the key bug, we can see Doll in the background, who just saw Uzi with this key bug. Doll is clearly following Uzi around as she investigates, learning clues as she does. We cut back to N, V, and the campers doing archery. After N completely destroys the target, Brayden accidentally releases an arrow, killing unnamed student 2. Also, notice how V and Lizzie have been hanging out throughout this episode. They are starting to become friends after the prom betrayal from last episode. Uzi sneaks over and grabs En's attention, telling him not to tell V she's there. Unfortunately, En's inclusive reflexes give Uzi away, and she's forced to say hi to the whole group. Also, random thought, but how is Uzi able to whisper to En so far away in a way that only he heard it? En and Uzi must have some crazy audio settings for this to work. When Uzi reveals herself to the group, however, the gag continues and everyone jumps back in fear, and Brayden releases another arrow, this time heading for Uzi. Someone should really take this bow away from him. Uzi stops the arrow mid-air with the solver, but then starts to overheat again. This time, the overheating turns the arrow into a steaming, fleshy creature, and the camera zooms in to V's terrified expression. V draws her blades, ready to attack Uzi, but she runs off into the woods, terrified of what she just created. Also, just before she ran off, she stared at the steaming oil from the drone Brayden shot and killed earlier, almost being drawn to it. Uzi runs into another cabin, blocking the door and closing all of the blinds with the solver. She frantically opens her backpack, breaking the zipper in the process, ready to eat the arm she brought from Doll's room. But the solver has apparently given her hypersensitivity to sound and light, and she breaks the ticking clock in all but one of the lights hanging from the wall. When she tries to break the last one, the same overheating thing takes place that happened with the arrow, creating a bunch of black sludge all throughout the cabin. Notice how when the arrow turned into this creature, and when the light turned into all this sludge, Uzi's purple absolute solver turned yellow. Yes, in this scene it did turn yellow too. There was just a red shading over the entire scene. This color change will make sense after episode 5. We cut to En pushing V back, trying to stop her from hurting Uzi. V says we do our jobs and that thing leaves us alone, which is in reference to whatever V knows that En doesn't. We got a glimpse of this in episode 3, and it will be explained in episode 5. Because V won't tell En what's going on, he pulls out his blade and strikes her back, surprising V that En would ever attack her like this. En leaves to go find Uzi, and V just wanders off, leaving the campers all alone. Now that the campers are unsupervised, Darren and Rebecca wander off to make out, searching for the perfect mood until they decide on the same cabin that Uzi was in. Darren forces open the door, only to find the room covered in this sludge that Uzi created from her overheating yellow absolute solver. Uzi's flashlight falls down and lights up her backpack, revealing that Uzi did eat the arm, but it clearly wasn't enough because she has turned full murder drone, growing organic wings and a tail to find more oil to eat to cure her overheating. She even has the X on her display now, something we have only seen on the murder drones when they're hunting. We return to En, who is tracking footprints through the snow to try to find Uzi. The footprints disappear though, and he decides to head into the nearest cabin to investigate. We can clearly see that this is not the same cabin that Uzi ran into, however. So whose footprints were these leading to this cabin? Well, as En approaches these screens, we see in the bottom left corner another human hand scurrying away. We also see a pair of eyes in the reflection of this screen, blinking as they're watching him. This hand means this is the same lifeless figure Uzi saw earlier that's watching En now. And it was also this same figure that made the footprints in the snow leading him to this cabin. For some reason, this thing wanted En to find this zombie drone VHS. Reasons that I will explain during episode 7. One last thing to note in this scene are the visions En has after touching the zombie drone's VHS. The first image is of the 4th maid/butler drone that was introduced at the start of episode 2. She has a human hand in her mouth, an absolute solver eye just like Doll and Uzi, but yellow, and her finger pointing to the hand in her mouth, almost proud of it. The next image shows another human hand in some sort of chandelier. Also, notice how the arm shifts between the shadowy form and the real fleshy form. As En saw this arm, the internal program in all drones that sees humans as only shadowy creatures was having a hard time determining if this was human anymore, after being severed from the rest of the body. Finally, we see this huge black hole-looking thing in the sky outside of the Episode 2 mansion back on Earth. In the middle, it says null, which is defined in mathematics as having or associated with the value 0. This null black hole will reappear in Episode 6 and beyond. Also, the meanings of these first two images will be explained in Episode 5. We then return to Uzi in the cabin, eating the bodies of Darren and Rebecca, but struggling to keep any of it down. Because she's throwing up all of the oil she needs to survive and not actually using any of it to stop from overheating, the solver in her keeps murdering people to fix the overheating problem. This is why we see her display glitching in and out of normal eyes, the murder drone X, high temperature, and the solver eye. She needs the oil, but is refusing to eat it, so the solver must completely take over to ensure her survival. We can see that the severed lower half of Rebecca's body, and a trail of oil leaving the cabin as she crawled back to the others to warn them about Uzi. Also, funny enough, the worker drones are roasting batteries over the campfire. Batteries are apparently their food source, and we even saw some in the floor alongside this dead worker drone earlier. Also, notice how Sam, the drone who's high, is holding a magnet. This is how drones get high, with magnets. It's interesting how they drink oil, eat batteries, and use magnets as drugs. As Emily, Sam, Lizzie, and Brayden try to piece together who Rebecca is talking about, Solver Uzi walks up on a hillside, dropping Darren's sunglasses by her feet, extinguishing the fireplace, and standing ominously over the group. Also, funny detail, when Brayden was killed, he burst into flames, just like how his head was always on fire from Uzi possessing him back in Episode 2. Sam yells split up, and Emily says she read in Final Girl that that's a good thing to do. Ironically, the book said explicitly to not split up your group. Solver Uzi chases Sam first, and we get a good look at Uzi's tail as it's examining Sam behind a tree. She drops the Final Girl book on Sam, and then proceeds to kill and eat him. Then Solver Uzi tricks Lizzie with a lifeless Emily before ripping her head off. Emily was, in fact, the last one to die, as the foreshadowing of her book Final Girl suggested. Solver Uzi moves in for the kill on Lizzie, but is stopped by V just in time. In the split second when Uzi saw V, she returned to her normal eyes, now able to overpower the Solver's control after eating Sam and no longer having the overheating issue. V cuts off one of Uzi's arms and her tail before sending her flying backwards. We can also see a warning symbol on Uzi's display after having parts of her body cut off. As Uzi is on the ground, we see her tail get pulled back towards her, and her arm in the process of regenerating. This regeneration also looks awfully similar to the way N regenerated his head back in Episode 1, proving once again that the murder drones have some of the Absolute Solver themselves. During this, V says, "New body, same horrors, huh, Sin?" This is actually a huge clue as to what V knows that she refuses to share with N, as well as why she is trying to kill Uzi, and why she aimed her gun at her at the end of last episode. This is also the first audible mention of the character Sin, whereas the very first mention in the series was on N's rebooting display in Episode 1. We'll get a lot more info on this character and their relation to the murder drones in the next episode. Also, incredibly, it only took Uzi 23 seconds to fully regenerate her arm and tail, showing just how much control she has gained over her solver abilities. A fight then ensues between Uzi, now with the solver back in full control, and V. Solver Uzi rips off one of V's arms with her tail, and then uses the blade on the end of it to throw back at her, and then lock her other arm in place. V tries to use her tail in its nanite acid, but Uzi's tail proves superior because of its mouth and teeth. At this moment, V is actually scared for her life, since Uzi has disabled every means she has of defending herself. She would have definitely suffered heavy damage had N not stepped in and saved her. Now we see here that N throws Uzi up super high in the sky, like really far. It takes a whole minute and 10 seconds to fall back down. This YouTube user, Master of the Continuum, calculated that for N to throw Uzi up this far, he needed to apply 16,000 pounds of force. All of this is assuming that Copper 9's gravity is the same as Earth's, Uzi weighs 50 pounds, and air resistance is ignored. I'll leave a link to the video showing this in the description. During N and Uzi's descent, N gives her a bit of a therapy session, where the two work things out and N promises he'll help Uzi figure out what's happening. After they land, V is immediately back on guard to fight Uzi again. But once N and Uzi hug it out, she puts her weapons away, upset that she isn't allowed to kill Uzi. We also see V chuckle at Lizzie's comment of ew in reference to N and Uzi, showing that her character is slowly softening up. All of the remaining campers, including V and N, leave the camp on the school bus. We can see for a brief moment V looking at her claws in the same way that N did in episode 2. She too is wondering how she came to be a murder drone, and is questioning her entire backstory. The teacher asks V about the missing campers, and V takes the blame for it, chalking it up to her just being hungry. This is a huge moment of growth for V, since she would have never taken the blame for something like this, but she is starting to care about Uzi now. V also takes a look back at Uzi, who is sleeping on N's shoulder. We see the key bug crawl back into Uzi's beanie, meaning Uzi had it under there the whole time. The sunrise then shines light into the bus. The corner of Uzi's hand is exposed to this light and starts to burn. This is because of the overheating issues she is now prone to with the solver, so she has to stay away from the sunlight from now on, just like the murder drones. At this moment, N becomes slightly scared of Uzi, since he too is in the dark about the solver and its potential side effects. To end the episode, we get a glimpse at the zombie drone's VHS tape that N took with him. We will see what's on this VHS tape at the start of next episode. Finally, at the very end of the credits, we get this remembrance of Brayden at prom, with his head on fire. The Murder Drones fandom really liked this character and always wished for his head to be extinguished. Glitch Productions gave them that, but then ruthlessly killed him off, so I guess they felt compelled to give him a memorial. That ends my breakdown of Murder Drones Episode 4, Cabin Fever. This episode honestly left us with a lot more questions than answers, but I hope I was able to explain everything I could about the info this episode gave us. If you learned something new in this video, please point it out in the comments. I love talking with all of you about the channel and the Murder Drone series. If you for some reason have not watched Murder Drones, please go watch the original videos and give them a like. If you enjoyed my analysis, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. This marks the halfway point to the end of the series, and the next episode is extremely lore heavy, so keep an eye out for my next video. If you have any questions about the series, leave a comment and I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. I hope you all have a great day, and see ya!